hands. Everyone wants to stand. I roll in my jack. Fast like the wind, everybody's on the board. Roll to the streets, I'm the man with the plan. Got the world in my hands, every woman wants to stand. I roll in my jag, fast like the wind. Every mission I take, you know I'm gonna win.
Welcome to the adventures of J Cat, where thrills meet tenderness in a captivating blend of sexy, excitement and romance. Hosted by the adventurous Jay Bahari, this hip podcast invites listeners to embark on exhilarating journeys filled with captivating stories and heartfelt moments. Each episode explores the intriguing intersections of adventure and love, transporting you to breathtaking romance and inspiring tales that will leave you yearning for your own escapades. Whether you're a seasoned traveler, a hopeless romantic, or simply someone who appreciates a great story, J Cat Adventures promises a delightful escape into the extraordinary, sparking your imagination and igniting your wanderlust. Tune in and let the adventures begin.
Hi, I am your host Jay Bahari. Let's go. As the days grew longer and the tranquility of their life together became more familiar, J-Cat began to feel the stirrings of something he hadn't felt in years: restlessness. The peace he had found with Adelais was undeniable, but deep down, J-Cat knew that settling into this life wasn't in his nature. His past had shaped him into a man who thrived in the shadows, a man who found purpose in the chase, in the hunt. One evening, as they sat by the fire, the warmth of the flames dancing in their eyes, J-Cat reached out to take Adelais' hand. She looked at him with a smile, but there was a question in her gaze, a question she hadn't dared to ask but one that had been growing with each passing day. "I've been thinking," J-Cat began, his voice steady but laced with a hint of sorrow, "about everything we've been through, and everything that lies ahead." Adelais' smile faltered slightly, sensing the shift in his tone. "What is it, J-Cat?" He looked into her eyes, seeing the love and trust she had placed in him, and it pained him to break the bond they had formed. But J-Cat knew he couldn't allow himself to be tied down by the comfort they had built together. Not when the world still called to him, still needed him in ways that a peaceful life could never fulfill. "I can't stay," he said, his voice heavy with the weight of his decision. "Not like this. Not forever." Adelais' eyes widened, and for a moment, she looked as though she might protest. But then she nodded, a tear slipping down her cheek. "I knew this day would come," she whispered. "I just hoped it wouldn't be so soon." J-Cat pulled her into his arms, holding her close as the reality of his words settled between them. "I will always care for you, Adelais. You've given me more than I ever thought I could have again. But this isn't who I am. I'm not made for this kind of life." Adelais nodded against his chest, her voice choked with emotion. "I understand. But it doesn't make it any easier." They spent the rest of the night in each other's arms, savoring every last moment they had together. When the morning came, J-Cat knew it was time to go. He kissed Adelais one last time, a lingering, bittersweet kiss that spoke of all the things they could have had, if only he were a different man. As J-Cat walked away, the sun rising behind him, he didn't look back. He couldn't. The path he had chosen was one of solitude, of purpose beyond personal happiness. And though it hurt to leave Adelais, he knew it was the only way to stay true to himself. The wind whispered through the trees as he made his way to the road, and for a moment, he thought he heard Camille's voice, encouraging him, telling him he had done the right thing. J-Cat knew that he would always carry the memory of these women with him, their love a guiding light in the darkest of times. But for now, it was time to move on. Time to embrace the life that had always been his, a life of endless pursuit, of hunting shadows, and of finding meaning in the chase. J-Cat was a man who could never be fully tamed, and though his heart ached with the loss of Adelais, he knew that his journey was far from over. Freedom he had reclaimed. As J-Cat walked away from the cabin, the crisp morning air filled his lungs, each breath a reminder of the freedom he had reclaimed. The horizon stretched out before him, vast and unknown, just like his future. He had left behind something beautiful, something real, but he knew that he couldn't let himself be bound by the ties of a life that wasn't meant for him. The memories of the night before lingered in his mind, the warmth of Adelais' embrace, the softness of her voice as she tried to hold back tears, the way she had looked at him with a mixture of love and resignation. It had been one of the hardest things he'd ever done, walking away from her. But J-Cat knew that staying would have been harder. It would have meant denying who he was at his core, a man driven by the need for action, by the hunt, by a purpose that extended beyond the comfort of love. As he continued down the road, the sun rising higher in the sky, J-Cat found himself thinking of Camille. Her death had set him on this path, one that had been defined by pain and loss, but also by the fierce determination to bring justice to those who had wronged him. Camille had been his anchor, the love of his life, and losing her had shattered him in ways he still couldn't fully comprehend. But it had also forged him into the man he was now, ruthless, relentless, and unwilling to let anything or anyone hold him back. The past few months with Adelais had been a brief respite, a glimpse into a life he could never have. He had allowed himself to feel again, to open up and let someone in, but it had only reinforced what he already knew, that his world was too dangerous, too unpredictable, for a relationship to survive. Adelais deserved more than a man who could be taken from her at any moment, whose life was always on the line. The further he walked, the more resolute he became. The road ahead was uncertain, but it was his. He would continue to fight, to hunt down those who preyed on the innocent, and to seek out the justice that had always driven him. And though he would always carry the memory of Adelais with him, J-Cat knew that he couldn't let it weaken his resolve. As the sun reached its zenith, J-Cat found himself at a crossroads, both literally and figuratively. He paused, looking out at the different paths before him. One led back to the life he had known with Adelais, the life he had left behind. The other led into the unknown, into a future filled with danger, but also with the promise of fulfillment that only his chosen path could offer. Without hesitation, J-Cat turned away from the past and walked toward the unknown. The road was long, and the journey ahead would be difficult, but he was ready. He had faced down death before, and he would do it again. He would continue to live in the shadows, a hunter in the darkness, driven by the need to right the wrongs that plagued the world. As the day wore on and the sun began its descent, J-Cat felt a strange sense of peace settle over him. He was alone again, as he had been before Adelais, but this time, it didn't feel like a burden. It felt like clarity, like the world was as it should be. He was J-Cat, no nonsense, untamed, and unbreakable. And he was exactly where he needed to be. The road stretched out endlessly before him, and J-Cat walked on, the echo of Camille's voice in his mind, guiding him forward. He had lost much, but he had gained something too, a deeper understanding of himself, of the life he was meant to lead. He was a man of purpose, of action, and though love had touched his heart, it could not change the course he was destined to follow. J-Cat was free, and as he moved forward into the twilight, he knew that this was the only way it could be. For now, and for always. The winding roads of the wine country were as familiar to J-Cat as the lines on his palm. Each curve, each stretch of vineyard brought back memories, some sweet, some bitter. As he approached the estate he had once shared with Camille, a wave of nostalgia washed over him. The house, nestled between rows of grapevines, stood as a silent testament to the life they had built together, a life that had been violently torn from him. J-Cat parked his Jaguar XJ220 at the foot of the driveway, the engine's purr dying out as he cut the ignition. For a moment, he simply sat there, hands resting on the steering wheel, taking in the sight of the place he hadn't visited in years. This was where he and Camille had found peace, where they had planned their future, and where, in the end, all those plans had crumbled to dust. The house was as it had always been, elegant, timeless, with the faint scent of lavender drifting from the garden. J-Cat pushed open the door and stepped inside, the quiet of the house pressing down on him. He walked through the room slowly, memories of Camille's laughter, her touch, her presence filling the empty space. Every corner of the house held a piece of her, and J-Cat felt the familiar ache in his chest, a pain that had never truly gone away. He wandered out to the back patio, where they had often sat with a glass of wine, watching the sun set over the rolling hills. The vines were heavy with grapes, ready for the harvest, just as they had been when Camille was alive. J-Cat leaned against the railing, the cool breeze ruffling his hair, and closed his eyes, letting the memories wash over him. And that's a wrap on this episode of J-Cat Adventures. I hope you've enjoyed the journey and the excitement. Don't forget to subscribe or simply get in touch with me by audio call or audio text chat. Let me know what you would like to see added, and if you enjoyed the podcast. I would love to know what you think about J-Cat Adventures. Until next time, keep your spirit of adventure alive, and remember, the world is full of mysteries waiting to be uncovered. This is Jay Bahari, signing off. Stay curious, stay bold, and keep exploring. Also, you can find J-Cat products at www.jcatadventures.com and at Amazon.
In the shadows he roamed, but he shines so bright. With every step he takes, he's doing it right. He's J-Cat, the name that rings in every city. Slick with the moves, school soul in a digital age. Jay Bahari's love breaking out of range. Solar mission breaking down the wall. 60 years deep, but his spirit is young. Every heart is strong. From the binary peaks to the pixelated sky, soaring high, he's on a quest to spread love. So here